Cops arrest her. Elderly father without cause. Black woman brings the whole precinct to its knees. You don't have the right. The voice cracked through the humid Georgia air like a whip. Dana Whitmore's heels pounded the pavement as she raced across the cracked sidewalk, ignoring the startled gasps from bystanders. 2 Atlanta police officers were already forcing her father, Leonard Whitmore, 72, into the back of a squad car. His cane had fallen to the ground, his glasses were askew, and his wrists, too thin for the coarse metal, were locked in cuffs behind his back. "Sir, step away," the younger officer warned, posture stiff. Dana didn't stop. She shoved her badge into the air, not a police badge, not yet, but a black leather case embossed with gold. United States Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division. "You're making a mistake," she said through gritted teeth, glaring at the officers. "This is unlawful detention." The older cop squinted at her ID, unimpressed. "Ma'am, this is a local matter. Please back away or you'll be next." Dana took a single breath, not of fear, of calculation. "You're on body cam, right? Then let the record show I've warned you. If you don't release that man right now, you're going to regret this, personally and professionally." The threat was met with silence. The officers exchanged a glance, but neither moved to unlock the cuffs. Dana's voice dropped, cold as steel. "Okay, you've made your choice." The moment burned itself into every phone camera watching nearby. And in that moment, everything shifted. Not because of the drama unfolding on the curb, but because no one yet knew who Dana really was, or what she was about to unleash. 2 hours earlier, Dana was sipping a lukewarm coffee at a cramped cafe on Peachtree Street, poring over a redacted report involving Atlanta PD's use of force cases. Her phone buzzed. It was a neighbor from her father's street. "Something's wrong. Cops are outside Leonard's house. They're shouting. I think they just put him in cuffs." Dana was already moving before the call ended. Leonard Whitmore wasn't just her father. He was a retired public school principal, a lifelong community organizer, and one of the few black elders left in a rapidly gentrified neighborhood. He was known, respected, and utterly harmless. There was no world in which his arrest made sense. But as Dana drove through the city, sirens blaring around her, she already suspected what was happening. The case she had been building, the pressure she had been putting on certain precincts, it was getting too close, too personal, and someone just sent a message. Now, standing on the curb, watching the cruiser pull away with her father inside, Dana didn't cry. She didn't scream. She turned back to the watching crowd. "Who recorded that?" she asked. Hands shot up with phones still recording. A young woman stepped forward, trembling slightly. "I did. Got the whole thing, from the moment they shoved him." "Send it to this number," Dana said, writing digits on a napkin with a borrowed pen. "Then share it everywhere. Hashtag it. Justice for Leonard. And tag me. You want this to go public?" Dana's voice didn't waver. "No, I need it to." By the time Dana reached the precinct, the footage had already gone viral. Local reporters hovered outside. Protesters had begun gathering with hand-painted signs. "Free Leonard. Respect our elders. This is what injustice looks like." Inside, the front desk sergeant gave her a hard stare. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for my father, Leonard Whitmore. Unlawfully detained. I want to see the arrest report." "Ma'am, we're still processing." Dana stepped closer. "Then process this. My name is Dana Whitmore. I work with the DOJ's Civil Rights Division, and if I don't have a report in my hand in the next 5 minutes, you're going to have more than a protest on your hands. You'll have a federal investigation." The sergeant hesitated, face paling. "Let me make a call," he muttered. 30 minutes later, Leonard sat across from her in a stuffy holding room, rubbing his wrists. He tried to smile, but it cracked halfway. "They said I fit the description." "Of what? An old black man who forgot to mow his lawn?" Dana's fists clenched. They're scared. That report I'm compiling? The one that links over 27 excessive force cases to this precinct alone? They know I'm close. You think this was deliberate? I don't think, Dad. I know. And now they've made it personal. Leonard's eyes softened. You always did fight harder when someone hurt your family. Dana leaned in. This isn't just about us anymore. It never was. Outside the precinct, chants had begun. Say his name, Leonard Whitmore, rang through the evening air. Inside, phones rang without pause. Public relations officers scrambled. Internal Affairs sent an emergency email. And somewhere inside the building, the officers who had slapped cuffs on a kind, elderly black man were being quietly escorted into a conference room, faces pale, eyes darting. They had no idea what they had just triggered, because Dana Whitmore wasn't just a concerned daughter. She was a storm in heels, and the precinct that thought they could intimidate her into silence had just given her the spotlight. What they didn't know, she intended to bring the entire house down. The footage was everywhere. By the time the morning news ran the story, led by a fiery segment on WATL's Good Morning Atlanta, the clip of Leonard Whitmore's arrest had been shared over 3 million times. Cable anchors analyzed every frame. Twitter lit up with outrage. Civil rights groups issued official statements. Even a state senator retweeted the clip with one word: unacceptable. Inside her apartment, Dana watched it all unfold with eyes that didn't blink. She hadn't slept. Instead, she sat cross-legged on her living room floor, papers and printed files spread across the carpet like a war room. On the coffee table was a thick binder labeled APD Pattern of Abuse, Internal Draft. A red pen lay beside it, uncapped, bleeding slightly onto a folded subpoena. Her phone buzzed again. A name flashed across the screen. Agent Caleb Ross, DOJ Field Support. She answered. I saw the clip, Caleb said, voice low. Half the department's seen it. Word is, it's not just going viral. It's landing in offices where people usually pretend they've lost their internet connection. Good, Dana replied. But Dana, this makes you a target. I already was. There was a pause. I meant publicly. They're going to start digging. Your family, your records, hell, even your college essays. I don't care, she said. They picked this fight, and now I'm going to finish it. Caleb exhaled slowly. Then let's do it smart. I'm flying in tonight. You'll need backup. At the precinct, the tone had shifted overnight. The officers who arrested Leonard were suspended pending review, but not fired. A press release referred to it as a regrettable incident involving mistaken identity. The statement, sanitized and vague, didn't even mention Leonard's name. But Dana wasn't waiting for apologies. She filed an official motion through the DOJ for an emergency audit of precinct records, citing not only Leonard's arrest but 5 other complaints linked to the same patrol officers, all dismissed within hours of being submitted. What she didn't expect was the message she received that afternoon. An anonymous email. No subject. No signature. Just a link. She clicked it. The browser opened to a private file host. The video was grainy, clearly from a security camera, but unmistakable. It showed an officer entering the evidence room 20 minutes before Leonard's arrest. He wasn't supposed to be there. He didn't sign in. Dana squinted. She recognized him. Officer Bryant Cole. He wasn't on duty that day, at least not according to the log. She rewound the footage, frame by frame. At one point, Cole opened a drawer and removed something, then looked up, straight into the camera, as if daring someone to find him. Dana sat back, breath caught in her chest. This wasn't about a random arrest. It was a setup, and someone on the inside just left her a breadcrumb. Later that evening, Dana met Caleb at a quiet bar near Decatur. He was tall, weary-looking, with the sort of gaze that scanned every entrance without appearing paranoid. They sat in a booth away from the main floor, phones in airplane mode. I ran facial recognition on that video, Caleb said, tapping his laptop. That's definitely Officer Cole. He was placed on administrative leave 6 months ago for excessive force. Case disappeared. Let me guess, Dana said. No charges filed. Worse, he was reinstated under supervision. A classic ghost rehire. They bring him back off record to do dirty work. So they used him to plant something? Dana muttered, piecing it together, then used that to justify arresting my dad. Caleb nodded. That's what it looks like. Dana leaned back, fury simmering under the surface. They didn't just want to send a message. They wanted to bait me, drag me into a mess I couldn't untangle without making it personal. Caleb looked at her. And? Dana stared into her drink. Then I'll get personal. The next day, Dana didn't go back to the DOJ field office. She went back to the precinct, but not as an agent. She arrived in a gray hoodie, jeans, and sneakers. No badge, no legal assistant, no warning. She waited across the street in her car until she saw Officer Cole enter the building through the side lot. Then she grabbed her backpack, crossed the street, and followed him inside. The front desk sergeant was the same from 2 days before. He didn't recognize her at first. "Excuse me," Dana said, using a softer voice. "I'm here to drop off paperwork for Officer Cole." He blinked. "He's not scheduled. Wait, who are you with?" She handed him a sheet of paper. It was a phony subpoena, legal-sounding but empty, with her burner number at the bottom. The sergeant glanced at it, nodded slowly. "You can wait over there." Dana sat near the vending machines, keeping her head down. 10 minutes passed, then 15. She heard a familiar voice. "Somebody leave a drop-off for me?" Cole asked as he approached the desk. "That lady," the sergeant said, nodding toward her. Cole turned, Dana stood, and for the first time their eyes met. His smirk faded. "Agent Whitmore," he said under his breath. "Didn't expect to see you slumming it." "Cut the crap," Dana replied, stepping closer. "You were in the evidence room before my father was arrested. I have the footage. What were you doing there?" "You should leave," he said, glancing at the sergeant, "before this becomes a problem." She didn't move. "I'm not scared of you." Cole leaned in, voice tight. "You should be." Dana smiled coldly. "That's exactly why you're going to lose." By nightfall, another video had leaked, this time not from Dana. It was security footage again, this one showing Cole and another officer laughing while dragging Leonard to the car. Cole was caught saying, "Bet she won't be so loud when it's her daddy." The audio was clear, undeniable, and whoever leaked it sent a clear message. Dana had allies, and the department? It had cracks. Cracks big enough for the truth to come flooding through. The precinct issued another statement that night. They called the footage deeply concerning and promised to launch a thorough review. But it was too late. The public had seen enough. And Dana, sitting in her apartment with her father, sleeping peacefully in the next room, knew something for certain. They had underestimated her. And now she wasn't just coming for justice, she was coming for blood. It was nearly 11 p.m. when the knock came. Dana froze mid-step in her living room, mug of cold coffee in one hand, laptop in the other. The knock was firm. Not frantic, not aggressive, but definitely not casual either. She set the mug down, glanced toward the door. Her father, Leonard, was already in bed, breathing evenly in the guest room. She tiptoed to the peephole. Standing outside was a woman, mid-30s, tightly coiled hair, eyes scanning the hallway. She wore a janitor's uniform. Name tag, L. Murphy. Dana cracked the door. "Yes." The woman leaned in. "My name's Lorraine. I work nights at the precinct. I clean the 3rd floor." Dana didn't speak. "I know what they did to your father," Lorraine said quickly, "and I think I've got something you need to see." Dana opened the door wider. 15 minutes later, they were sitting at Dana's dining table. Lorraine laid out a small USB drive. Her hands trembled slightly as she pushed it forward. "I've seen a lot over the years," Lorraine began, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "I've cleaned up after officers, heard things I shouldn't have, but I kept my head down. It's not my fight, right?" Dana didn't respond. "Until last week. That night they arrested your dad. After they hauled him out, I was mopping up outside the conference room. Door was half open. I heard them laughing about it." "Who?" Dana asked. "Cole, Sergeant Duffy, maybe one more. They were bragging about how it'd rattle the DOJ lady without leaving a fingerprint. Said something about scaring her off before she finds the ledger." Dana stiffened. "What ledger?" "I don't know," Lorraine admitted. "But they mentioned a name, Lieutenant Felix Harlan. Said he was the one who kept the whole thing buried for years. That he moved it last month." Dana's mind raced. She knew that name. Felix Harlan, former head of internal affairs, quietly retired after an unrelated investigation into overtime fraud. Rumor had it he took a golden parachute deal to avoid a public hearing. But if he had a ledger, if that ledger proved falsified reports, bribes, or even planted evidence, that wasn't just departmental rot. That was federal. Dana reached for the USB. "What's on this?" "A camera I set up in the third-floor janitor's closet. It faces the hallway outside the archives. 2 days ago, I caught Cole slipping in with a key he wasn't supposed to have. He came out 30 minutes later, empty-handed." Dana nodded slowly. "If the ledger's real, and he moved it, then it's somewhere off-record now," Lorraine said, "and they're counting on everyone being too scared or too tired to chase it." Dana's eyes burned, not with fatigue but focus. "I'm not tired." The next morning, Dana went underground. She didn't go into the field office, didn't use her DOJ email. Instead, she met with Caleb in a quiet co-working space rented under a shell name. Caleb had brought 2 new laptops, a burner phone, and a heavy folder labeled Harlan Ghost Records. He tossed it on the table. "You were right," he said. "I pulled traffic logs. Harlan accessed the evidence archive 6 times in the 2 weeks before he retired. Each time it was after midnight, unusual for someone winding down his career." "And the last visit?" Dana asked. "Day before Cole got reinstated." There it was, a pattern. Dana opened the folder, sifting through transcripts, internal memos, anonymous complaints. But one photo stopped her. It was Harlan at a charity gala, smiling, arm around a familiar man. Assistant Police Commissioner Raymond Knox. Knox had remained clean for years, publicly. He was the kind of man who shook hands with governors, donated to youth programs, and ran his department like a PR campaign. But Dana knew how to read eyes, and in this photo, Knox wasn't looking at the camera. He was watching the door. "Knox has the ledger," Dana said quietly, "or he knows where it is." That night, she showed up to the Precinct gala. It was a fundraiser for the Police Benevolence Fund. Black tie, lavish, the kind of event where reputations were polished, not questioned. Dana wore a deep navy gown, hair pinned high, lips painted a commanding shade of crimson. She wasn't trying to blend in, she wanted to be seen. Heads turned, murmurs followed. "Isn't that the DOJ agent? I heard she's the one who leaked the video. Didn't they arrest her father?" She didn't flinch. She moved like gravity bent around her. At the bar, she spotted him, Knox. Tall, broad-shouldered, perfectly still as he sipped a bourbon, and pretended not to see her. But she walked straight up to him. "Commissioner Knox," she said smoothly, "you remember me." He turned slowly, smile rehearsed. "Agent Whitmore, what an unexpected surprise." "I doubt that," he chuckled. "Let's keep this civil, shall we? It's a charity event." Dana leaned in, voice low and deliberate. "There's a ledger, Knox. Harlan moved it. Cole tried to clean it up, but I'm still here, and I'm not just after justice for my father anymore." I'm after every name in that book." The commissioner's smile faltered. "You're bluffing," he said. "If you had it, you wouldn't be here making threats." "You're right," Dana said, stepping back. "I'm not here to threaten you." She looked around. "I'm here to make sure everyone sees what you look like when you realize the walls are closing in." And with that, she handed him an envelope. Inside was a copy of the footage Lorraine had given her, and a printed screenshot of Cole entering the archive room. She turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, frozen, bourbon in hand. That night, the story aired on every major network. DOJ agent uncovers potential evidence tampering in APD. And the final image on the screen? A still frame of Dana Whitmore, eyes locked on the camera, holding a statement that simply read, "I will not stop until the full truth is exposed." The hum of the fluorescent lights in the precinct felt louder than usual, like a low-grade siren constantly ringing in Chief Donovan Hale's ears. Outside, a swarm of reporters had gathered since the video dropped, video that now had over 3 million views. The footage of Walter Dawson being shoved, cuffed, and thrown into a cruiser while his daughter screamed in protest was already being dissected frame by frame on national television. Inside, officers walked the halls with tight shoulders and tense jaws. Nobody dared mention the word mistake out loud, but it loomed over every whispered conversation like smoke from a smoldering fire. Chief Hale slammed his office door and barked, "Where the hell is Simmons?" Officer Renee Simmons stepped in, clutching a folder, her face pale. "Sir, we're, still waiting on legal. They're reviewing the footage, but public pressure's mounting. People are calling for suspensions. Some want charges." "Charges?" Hale scoffed. "For what? Doing our damn jobs?" Simmons didn't answer. Hale leaned across the desk. "What about the woman, the daughter? She's still refusing to talk to us." "She hasn't responded to any calls or emails. Her name's Kiara Dawson, works in tech, runs some security consulting firm. Not local. Based in D.C. "Tech?" Hale repeated, the word catching in his throat. "What kind of tech?" Simmons hesitated. "That's the thing. It's not your standard cybersecurity. She consults with defense contractors, Homeland, FBI." Hale's blood turned cold. Outside the precinct, Kiara Dawson sat in her rented car 1 block away. She had on a baseball cap, a dark jacket, and AirPods that fed her encrypted comms from a private server routed through 3 continents. Her face was unreadable as she reviewed the precinct's personnel files she'd accessed hours earlier. Unsecured. Sloppy. She wasn't just angry anymore, she was focused. Every camera around the building had a blind spot. Every access code had a pattern. Every officer had a weakness. And she now had every single one mapped. "Mom would have laughed at this," she muttered aloud. "You and your puzzles, Dad. Well, I cracked it." Her phone buzzed. It was a message from a burner app she'd coded herself. File extraction complete. 42 flagged internal memos, 17 complaint reports, 8 sealed cases, all tied to the same officers who had arrested her father. She stared at the list. Some names she expected. Others? Not so much. She stepped out of the car and walked toward the nearby cafe, the one with a clear view of the precinct's side entrance. She wasn't ready to walk in yet. No, this wasn't the moment to confront. This was the moment to destabilize. Back inside, Hale finally threw down the file Simmons had brought. "Pull everyone from that arrest detail, all of them. Put them on leave pending review." "Already done, sir." "And the footage I leak? We're still not sure where it came from. It wasn't hacked through our system. Came from a personal phone, Officer Kevin Mallory. But his phone was wiped clean before we could collect it. Then he's hiding something." Simmons opened her mouth, then stopped. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Sir, you may want to see this." She turned her iPad toward him. It was playing a video uploaded just minutes ago on a platform designed for whistleblowers. No narrator, no music, just raw clips from inside the precinct. Shoved paperwork, discarded complaints, body cam footage previously sealed, and at the end, a clip of Walter Dawson being wheeled out of the jail unconscious, while a medic muttered BP's unstable possible stroke. Hale's jaw tensed. Simmons whispered, "That came from inside." Kiara, now seated in the cafe, sipped her coffee slowly. She watched as two uniformed officers were called out of the side entrance by a higher-up, their expressions grim. Step 1. Force reaction. Her laptop buzzed again. An anonymous tip she'd just received through her private leak site confirmed something she'd suspected. Internal chat logs showed officers joking about the old man getting roughed up. No remorse, no awareness, no fear. She forwarded it all to 3 journalists, one local, one national, one independent. Then she leaned back in her chair, staring at the precinct. That's when she saw him. Detective Miles Granger, the only officer who hadn't appeared in any of the footage, the only one with no direct interaction during the arrest, but who was now coordinating internal affairs. She recognized him immediately. He'd been on a panel once in D.C., the same one she was invited to speak on but declined. Granger walked out the side door, phone pressed to his ear, scanning the street. She quickly turned her face away, but it was too late. His head tilted. He'd seen her. Or had he? He didn't approach, just paused, then slipped into an unmarked car. Kiara's heart thudded. Maybe this was more layered than she thought. Maybe there were fractures inside already. That night, Chief Hale sat alone in his office with the blinds shut and the news playing on mute. His desk was littered with files, his inbox flooded with notifications he had no energy to open. He stared at the precinct's patch on his desk, thumb tracing the embroidered letters. His phone rang. Private number. He answered with a sigh. Hale, a voice, female, calm, spoke clearly. "You're going to resign." He froze. "Excuse me? You're going to step down before this goes any further." "Who is this?" "You already know who I am." Silence. "I'm giving you a choice," the voice continued. "Step down quietly, or the next leak includes the IA cover-up on the Barnes case. You remember Barnes, don't you? The teenager found dead after a traffic stop." More silence. "You buried the footage. You approved the language. You signed the memo." Click. Hale stared at the phone like it might explode. In her hotel room, Kiara Dawson sat in silence, her laptop open beside her, her father's hospital chart on one screen, precinct logs on another, and a half-finished letter of intent to sue the city on the third. Her father still hadn't woken up. But the city was starting to stir, and she was just getting started. The light from the hospital window poured across Walter Dawson's wrinkled hands, resting limply on the thin white blanket. Machines beeped steadily beside him, monitoring every breath, every heartbeat. It had been 3 days since the arrest, 3 days since the stroke, 3 days since his daughter declared quiet war. Kiara sat at his bedside, still dressed in black, her laptop open on her lap. Her eyes were tired but unwavering, scanning reports, statements, internal documents. With every click, she pulled another thread from the fabric of the precinct's lies. The door opened softly behind her. "Miss Dawson," a soft voice said. Kiara turned. It was Dr. Alvin Royce, the attending physician. Mid-50s, black, gentle but firm. "He's stable," he said, "but recovery will be slow. He may regain full function, but the stress that triggered this, that wasn't just physical." "I know," Kiara whispered. Dr. Royce hesitated. "They say justice is healing. Let's hope it comes in time." He left the room quietly, and Kiara looked back at her father. "Justice," she said aloud. "They're not ready for what that means." Her phone buzzed, a message from her contact in City Hall. "Councilman Diego wants to meet. Confidential. Urgent." She slid her laptop into her bag and kissed her father's forehead. "Be right back, Daddy." 30 minutes later, she sat across from Councilman Diego Morales in a quiet back room of a Vietnamese cafe on the city's west side. He was young for his office, fiery, and tired of pretending the system was clean. "I've reviewed everything you sent," he said, keeping his voice low. "The videos, the sealed complaints, the IA leaks. This goes beyond Hale." Kiara nodded. "I know. There's a network of cover-ups. Officers rotating out when things get hot, judges looking the other way. They've been protecting each other for years. But what I can't figure out is why no one stopped it." "They kept it quiet," Kiara said, "but now it's out." Morales leaned forward. "You planning to go public?" "Not yet. I need more. I want a confession." He blinked. "From who?" "Detective Granger." Morales sat back, eyebrows raised. "You think he's the key?" "He's more than that," she said. "He's the architect." That evening, Kiara returned to the hotel and pulled up the files on Granger. He was clean on paper. Commendations, veteran, served in narcotics, then transferred to internal affairs. But there were red flags. Anonymous complaints never followed up. A woman who vanished after filing a report. A camera system that malfunctioned. The night of a controversial arrest. Kiara had seen patterns before. Patterns of men like Granger who knew how to bend the law without breaking it. Who didn't need to plant evidence because they knew how to erase it. She called in a favor from someone who owed her. The next day, Granger received a text from an unknown number. "I know what you did in 21. Meet me at the Franklin Bridge. 11 p.m. Come alone." He stared at the screen, pulse quickening. He'd buried that year. That file. That mistake. When 11 p.m. came, he stood under the dim lights of the bridge, hand resting on his belt, where his off-duty holster sat quietly. Kiara stepped from the shadows. He narrowed his eyes. You expected someone else?" He didn't respond. Kiara stepped closer, holding a tablet. "I have everything. The Barnes case, the suppression orders, the transfers you authorized to protect Hale, and this," she tapped the screen. Granger's face turned pale. It was a video feed, one taken years ago in the Precinct's interview room, a teenager with bruises on his face, begging for a lawyer. Granger leaning over him, calm, cold, whispering something. "I was told this was destroyed," he muttered. "You were told wrong," Kiara said. "Your voice, your threats, all recorded. And when paired with what I've just leaked to 3 newsrooms." He took a step forward. "You leak that, your father's name gets dragged through every mudhole in this city." She didn't flinch. "Try me." Silence. The night wind moved between them like a live wire. Then, unexpectedly, Granger's shoulders sagged. "What do you want?" he asked. Kiara stepped closer. "An on-record confession. Names. Chain of command. You give me that, I'll let you walk, out of the city, out of your career. Disappear, or," he looked at her, "or you go down with the rest." He stared at the tablet, then at her. Then, for the first time, his voice cracked. "You think you're the first person to try this?" "No," she said, "but I'm the last person who'll need to." At dawn, Kiara returned to her hotel. A file sat waiting in her encrypted inbox. It was Granger's voice, recorded, detailed, explicit. The rot at the heart of the precinct, named piece by piece. She didn't sleep. Instead, she worked. By 10 a.m., a new headline was trending. Detective implicated in wide-ranging precinct scandal. Leaked audio reveals decade-long cover-ups. By noon, Chief Hale was no longer answering calls. By 2 p.m., the mayor issued a statement promising a full investigation and sweeping reform. And by 5 p.m., Kiara Dawson stood outside the hospital, the wind in her hair, her phone vibrating with messages of support and threats. Her father still hadn't woken up, but his name had been cleared. The city was listening now, and the woman they had underestimated was just getting started. The precinct was in chaos. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the leaked audio had already been dissected by every major news outlet. Anchor after anchor read lines from the transcript with widening eyes, their voices tinged with shock and disbelief. And Kiara Dawson? She wasn't watching the news. She was already on her next move. Inside a downtown legal co-op nestled between two coffee shops, Kiara paced the floor in front of a whiteboard layered with names, arrows, timelines, and accusations. A young assistant, Thomas, fresh out of law school and idealistic to the bone, typed furiously at a laptop nearby. "You're sure Hale hasn't spoken publicly yet?" Kiara asked, eyes locked on the timeline. "Nope. Nothing from him. Nothing from his office. City Hall's distancing themselves fast." "Good," Kiara said. "That means he's scared, and fear makes men sloppy." Her phone buzzed. This time it wasn't a tip. It was her sister, Jasmine. Kiara hesitated before answering. "Hey." "You haven't been to the hospital," Jasmine's voice cracked. "Dad's still out and Mom's worried sick. She said she hasn't heard your voice in days." Kiara closed her eyes for a second, guilt stabbing her chest. "I know, I'm sorry. I can't stop now. You know that. He wouldn't want you to destroy yourself for this. He almost died because of this." Silence. "Come see him today," Jasmine said quietly. "Please, I think he's waiting for you." Kiara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll come." She hung up and stared at the board, and then she circled a name she hadn't touched yet. Captain Vera Lynch, a 30-year veteran of the force, respected, decorated, always 2 steps away from retirement and always conveniently uninvolved. But Kiara had found a thread, a transfer document she signed last year that rerouted a complaint against Officer Hale directly into an untraceable archive. She decided it was time to pull that thread. Hours later, Kiara met Lynch at a charity gala hosted by the Police Benevolent Association. She walked in unannounced, sleek in a navy dress, her presence impossible to ignore. Lynch spotted her immediately. "You're Kiara Dawson." "I am." "You've got nerve coming here." "I've got evidence too," Kiara replied. "Mind talking?" The two stepped into a seat room, a private reception lounge now buzzing with tension. "I've got you on record diverting complaints," Kiara said without preamble. "You shuffled internal investigations into cold storage. You protected men like Hale, like Granger." "I did my job," Lynch replied, voice steady. "No," Kiara said, voice rising. "You buried the truth." Lynch leaned in, her eyes sharp. "You think this department's rotten. It's not. It's just full of people trying to survive a system that was never built right. You want to burn it all down? Fine, but don't pretend you're saving it." "You're wrong," Kiara shot back. "I'm not burning it down. I'm rebuilding it." Lynch's lips tightened. Then, to Kiara's surprise, she stepped back and reached into her clutch. A flash drive. She held it out. "What's this?" Kiara asked, wary. "Backup files. Old IA reports, the ones I couldn't bury even if I wanted to. I kept them in case I ever needed to protect myself." "Why give them to me?" Lynch hesitated. "Because you're not wrong, and I'm tired," Kiara blinked. "This wasn't a trap. This was a turn." "You better use them right," Lynch added, voice low. "I will." The next 48 hours moved like wildfire. The files revealed not just corruption, but a cover-up of systemic abuse reaching back nearly 15 years. Kiara worked around the clock, enlisting legal aid, journalists, and civil rights watchdogs. At the same time, protests erupted across the city. People held up photos of Walter Dawson in his hospital bed, and signs that read, "I am Walter," filled courthouse steps. But not everyone was celebrating. Inside Precinct 42, panic brewed. Officers argued in back rooms, demanding explanations. Some resigned, some called in sick. Others lashed out, furious that one woman had undone decades of protected silence. Chief Hale, now backed into a corner, issued a public statement. This department has always upheld integrity. Any suggestion otherwise will be addressed legally. But Kiara wasn't done. With the new documents, she filed a class action lawsuit representing over 24 victims of the precinct's abuse. She held a press conference on the courthouse steps. To those who said I should stay quiet, I say this: silence is complicity. My father's silence almost killed him. Mine will do worse to you. She paused, eyes locked on the cameras. We're not fighting for one man. We're fighting for every family that's ever been told justice doesn't apply to them. And we're not stopping until every wall of corruption falls. Reporters erupted in questions. Microphones pushed closer. And in the back of the crowd, a familiar face stood silently. Captain Vera Lynch. She met Kiara's gaze and gave her the smallest nod. That night, as the city debated her every word, Kiara finally returned to the hospital. Walter Dawson's eyes fluttered open, and the first thing he whispered was, "Did you do it?" Kiara leaned in, voice shaking. "Not yet, but I will." The courtroom was packed to capacity. Cameras lined the walls, reporters perched at the edges of their seats, and every eye in the room seemed to lock onto one person, Kiara Dawson. She sat in the plaintiff's seat, composed and steady, her face unreadable, but her eyes sharp. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. Across the aisle sat Chief Matthew Hale, flanked by his legal team. His once proud posture now sagged under the weight of public scrutiny. The smug confidence he once wore like a badge was gone. In its place, a man unraveling. Judge Sanders entered. "Court is now in session." The murmurs hushed instantly. Kiara leaned over to her attorney, a woman named Cassandra Moreno, and whispered, "Make every word count." Moreno nodded, rose, and addressed the court. "What we are about to uncover is not a single incident, not a lone mistake," she said. "It is a pattern of misconduct, intimidation, and systemic failure that nearly cost an innocent man, Walter Dawson, his life. And that pattern was not accidental. It was protected." She clicked a remote. The projector lit up with the precinct's complaint records, dozens of names, dates, and signatures. Suppressed, delayed, discarded, over and over. The defense attorney stood next, trying to turn the tide. "Your Honor, we contend that Mr. Dawson's arrest was lawful under the suspicion of obstructing an investigation." Kiara's jaw clenched. Moreno responded. "Mr. Dawson was sitting on a park bench, feeding pigeons." Gasps broke out in the gallery. Then came the witnesses. One by one, former officers stepped forward, some shaking, some angry, but all ready to speak truth. A young patrol officer recalled how she was warned not to challenge Hale's authority, or she'd be blackballed. A former sergeant admitted he'd seen files disappear from the system overnight. And then, just before lunch recess, Kiara took the stand. The courtroom went dead silent. She looked directly at the jury. "My father is a retired postman. He never broke a law in his life. The day he was arrested, he asked one question: 'Why are you harassing that young boy?' That was enough for two officers to slam him into a cruiser, bruising his ribs and nearly stopping his heart." She paused, her voice steady despite the trembling in her hands. "When I tried to get answers, I was blocked at every turn. I was treated like a nuisance, a liar, even a threat. And when I told them I had a law degree, they laughed. When I told them I would sue, they sneered, because in their minds, women like me, black women, don't win." The room held its breath. "But today I am not asking you to feel sorry. I am asking you to believe that power without accountability is dangerous, that no one should be above the law, especially those sworn to uphold it." When she stepped down, even the judge's eyes lingered on her a beat too long. Outside, a crowd had gathered. Activists, pastors, mothers, sons. Some held signs with Walter's photo. Others wore shirts that read, "Justice for Dawson." As Kiara exited the courtroom, her phone buzzed. A text from Thomas, her assistant. "Got something. Huge. Check your email." She ducked into an empty conference room, pulled up the file. A video. The footage was raw, grainy, taken by a former precinct tech who'd reached out anonymously. It showed Hale, Lynch, and several senior officers at a closed-door meeting months ago. They were laughing, drinking, celebrating the shutdown of a civilian oversight proposal. And then Hale's voice. "We control the narrative. Always have." That was it. The smoking gun. She forwarded it to Moreno, then to every major journalist in her contact list. Less than 5 minutes later, it was trending on social media. Control the narrative began circulating with fury. By evening, the mayor's office had issued a statement. Hale was being placed on immediate administrative leave. An internal investigation was being launched. But Kiara wasn't done. She drove to the hospital to see her father. This time he was awake, alert. His voice was hoarse. "You really doing all this for me, baby?" Kiara smiled, tears prickling her eyes. "I'm doing it for us." Walter's hand trembled as it reached for hers. "Your mama would be proud." "I hope so." He looked away for a moment, then back at her. "You going to be safe?" Kiara squeezed his hand. They should be asking themselves that. Back at home, Kiara sat at her kitchen table, alone, watching the world unravel on her phone screen. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't celebrating. Not yet. The precinct was reeling. But the war wasn't over. Tomorrow, she would bring the rest of it crashing down. The morning of the verdict, Kiara stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her blazer with hands that no longer shook. She wasn't just preparing for court. She was preparing for the end of a war she never wanted, but refused to lose. Outside the courthouse, protesters lined the streets. News crews buzzed like flies. Reporters shouted questions. Kiara ignored them. Her eyes were locked on the entrance, her father's face playing in her mind. Inside, the tension was electric. Hale sat hunched over, eyes bloodshot, flanked by lawyers who no longer believed they could save him. Across from him, Kiara sat like a storm just before it breaks. Calm, inevitable. The judge cleared his throat. After reviewing the testimony's evidence, including the newly surfaced video, and considering the systemic implications of this case, this court finds the Metropolitan Police Precinct liable for unlawful arrest, use of excessive force, obstruction of justice, and willful suppression of accountability. A collective gasp rose in the courtroom. Chief Matthew Hale is hereby stripped of his title, pending federal investigation. Officer Stephen Lynch is ordered to appear before an internal affairs tribunal for possible criminal prosecution. The judge turned toward Kiara. "Ms. Dawson, the court acknowledges your perseverance, and your pursuit of justice has set in motion a formal review of all use-of-force incidents over the past 10 years. Your actions have restored faith where it was broken." The gavel fell. Kiara didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She breathed. A long, quiet breath she'd been holding since the day her father was taken away in handcuffs. Outside, the crowd erupted in applause and chants. Reporters swarmed her, but she raised her hand. "Let me speak." The crowd hushed. "My father was arrested for sitting on a park bench," she began. "He asked why a black teenager was being searched. That's it. No threat. No crime. But to some, our very presence is treated like a threat." She scanned the crowd, her voice tightening. "What happened to my father is not an isolated case. It's a pattern, a disease in the system. But we're not powerless. Today, we proved that. A woman in the front row wept. A young man held up a sign that read, 'We are Walter Dawson.'" Kiara continued. "I didn't win today because of my title. I won because I didn't give up, because truth doesn't die in silence. It demands to be heard." She paused, then smiled, just a little. "And I promise you this, We're just getting started. Back at the hospital, Walter was sitting up in bed, watching the live broadcast with misty eyes. "That's my girl," he whispered to the nurse beside him. Later that evening, Kiara sat at her desk, surrounded by files, emails, media inquiries. But her phone lit up with a different kind of notification, a video posted by a stranger. It showed a group of students at a community center reenacting part of her courtroom speech. They were all kids of color. And in the comments, someone wrote, "She gave us hope again." Kiara watched it twice. Then she opened her laptop and began drafting her next move, a citywide initiative to push for civilian oversight of all police departments, starting with the one she just tore apart. As she typed, her voice echoed in her head, strong, unwavering. "This isn't over. This is a beginning. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, anger, hope, purpose, then don't just scroll. Share it. Talk about it. Change starts with awareness, but it only lives through action." Subscribe to the channel for more real, raw, and powerful stories like this one. Your voice matters. Your view counts. Let's keep building a world where justice isn't a privilege. It's a right.